hands up if you weren't here first thing this morning when I gave my talk this morning. Okay, so this will be new for you. I'm sorry, but it'll be exactly the same as what I said. No, it's not. I'm joking. I was quite amused this morning when I first came in here because the speakers and the ceiling were booming, but the person that was speaking, the speakers going testing 1 2 1 2, wasn't in this room, and you could hear the frustration building as they were speaking through the microphone, tapping it. What's going on? And I suddenly worked out what was happening is we were hearing down here what must have been happening somewhere else in this overall building somewhere, and then we get more and more frustrated. What's that got to do with what I'm about to say now? Nothing. I just found that really amusing. It's one of those comedy moments.
To you, somewhere else.
But sometimes life's like that a bit, isn't it? Where we can say something in our mind, and then we hope to God that we haven't verbalised that and no one's heard what we're thinking. Anyway, I want to talk a little bit about CIAT, the Chartered Institute of Architectural Technologists, and a few of the things that are up and coming, really, and have been worked on for the last few years. Internationalisation of the organisation has been high on the agenda. I'm really excited about that because what that means is that in a globalised economy, in a world where we can work around the clock, if we're smart about the way we work together, we can have a chartered technologist in Singapore or Vietnam or Australia working at the same level as a chartered technologist here in the UK. So wherever you go around the globe, eventually a chartered technologist, architectural technologist, will be the same all the way around the globe, and it will be a known name. So that's an exciting venture that's been entered into, and the research that's taken place in relation to international growth has been very revealing. In some cultures, it's not very widely accepted. In others, they're absolutely hungry for it, and they get what it's about. There's not this necessity to grow from nothing. It's a sense that they are on their knees because they don't have that profession, which is the glue that holds architecture and the delivery of it on the ground with contractors and all other consultants together. And that divide is widening in some nations, India being one of those. So I think there's much to be excited about into the future, and I know that other organisations, other partner organisations are looking at similar. The RICS is getting internationalised, and these are all bodies that are held in high respect around the world with the Royal Charter. So that's something we should all be very proud of and excited about. The other thing that I'm particularly excited about is a newer invention, if that's the right word, or a newer initiative called Aspiration. And Natasha, who sat up in the audience there, is the chair for this region. And that's a demographic that's been, it's a demographic group that's been formed through listening to our members, student members saying to us, as a body, we graduate, and then beyond that, we have no connection, really, after graduation, with that route from that point to becoming chartered. You know, the age demographic generally happens to be an older age demographic in that path, and it's all about introducing opportunity, role models at a close age range to that general age demographic to them. So Aspiration is for student members of CIAT, for those that have graduated within 5 years of graduating on an AT accredited degree course, or those that have become chartered and within 3 years of becoming chartered. So you can see somebody might wait 10 or 15 years after graduating to become chartered, but they can be part of the Aspiration group. And what that means is that group, with generally speaking, a much younger and more dynamic thought process, are bringing new ideas to the table. Now, they're not ideas of the future, they're ideas of now, here and now, because they are the creative thinkers and the creative minds that are coming out into industry as we speak. So that's the now generation. I don't call it the future generation, who are going to be our future leaders, who are going to be the individuals and the collectives that actually shape our built environment and our profession. And I'm incredibly excited about that, and I hope you are too. So I've spoken to Tevin earlier over lunch, who I think is going to sign up to join that. But if anybody else wants to join that, this is an opportunity to have a voice. And I know in the UK, there's generally an undercurrent where people like to sit back and moan about things rather than engage sometimes. and get involved. This is an opportunity to engage, get involved, and shape what happens rather than whinge about what happens. So it's our opportunity, just like our opportunity today has been to vote. I don't know what the outcome of that will be. I'm a bit nervous about it, but we'll see. This is an opportunity to engage. So just want to share that with you really, and make you aware of that. So please spread the word. If you know of anybody who wants to get involved with Aspiration, then please do so. If you're with a partner organisation and you want to get involved, then you're welcome to. It's not exclusively for CIAT. The wider the network, the more opportunity. Right. On that note, without further ado, I'm going to introduce our next plenary speaker, Richard. Okay, and I'm going to let him do the talking about himself because I'll get it wrong if I try. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. My name's Richard Quartermaine. I'm the Environmental Manager at Hammerson. Thank you for inviting me along to speak to you today about our sustainability strategy, Positive Places at Hammerson, and also about the Victoria Gate development in Leeds, which was completed last year, which we're very excited about being a great project to work on, great from an architectural point of view, and also from a sustainability point of view as well. Our sustainability strategy is called Positive Places. Sustainability is very important to us as an organisation, but probably more so it's important to our stakeholders. So to our investors, to our communities, to our customers, the retailers who occupy our shopping centres, to our supply chain, and also to our employees as well. I'd also like to introduce at the end of this session our new Positive Places objective, and that's being net positive, which is both ambitious for us and the industry, but also incredibly daunting as well. So hopefully there'll be some good ideas coming back from the audience when we open it out to some questions. I'll try and allow 15-20 minutes for questions at the end. So who are Hammerson? Well, we own, manage and develop shopping centres, retail parks in the UK, Ireland and France. So our portfolio is worth 10 billion, although we own in conjunction with many joint venture partners. And so we have direct investors and then investors who also own a chunk of our retail assets. Our UK shopping centre portfolio accounts for about 2/3 of the overall portfolio. So not only is it Victoria Gate, but it includes other assets such as High Cross in Leicester, Bullring, Birmingham and Brent Cross in London. We've got about 23 shopping centres in general across the UK, Ireland and France, and we find with our retail parks as well, we're having to implement a sustainability strategy that covers both everything from initial design, from a blank sheet of paper, from a blank piece of land, through design, through construction, and very much so into operations and then demolition. So our strategy is a whole life strategy. We have to design and build something that can be run as efficiently and as effectively as possible. We do have direct influence and control in our development schemes. So we manage the process, we set the targets, we set the strategy for sustainability and design, and also the ongoing sort of management of the asset. Where we invest only in retail assets, we only can influence, we don't have the control of that strategy. So under our Positive Places sort of commitment, there are 5 individual commitments that cover all aspects of environmental and social sustainability. So challenge and innovate. Examples of this will be some sort of innovative design standards. So, for example, last year we opened in collaboration with Costa Coffee our first EcoPod. So this was on one of our retail parks. The EcoPod is a, let me get this right, net zero regulated carbon building. So we basically, the photovoltaics on the roof offset any of the sort of regulated carbon emissions from lighting and heating and air conditioning, etc. So it's a first for Costa, it's a first for sort of the UK. We're taking that concept, we're extrapolating it across a retail park. So we have a terrace of retail units, and we'll be offsetting the emissions that the tenants will be generating. We do work and collaborate with our tenants and form partnerships. So this is probably a key one under that commitment, but to actually look at how tenants consume energy, where the quick wins are in terms of sort of reducing their sort of carbon emissions, and I'll talk about that in a bit more detail later. We also had a project last year looking at natural capital. So what is the impact of carbon on society, on the environment locally, and actually trying to quantify that. So not only do you have a cost of electricity, a cost of carbon under sort of taxation, etc., but also what is the social cost of carbon, and actually trying to make that, take that externality and make it an internal business metric, so that we can start to think, well, okay, if we do PV, it saves us this energy, but also it has this positive impact on the local community, local environment. Protect and enhance, well, we target BREEAM Excellent for our projects. We try and exceed that, so we're looking at a BREEAM Outstanding Retail Park that's being certified at the moment. We're rolling out the retrofit of photovoltaic panels across our shopping centres. Serve and invest, this is really sort of giving back to our sort of local sort of communities. This can take a whole variety of ways. So at the moment we're looking at, we've been looking at placemaking, how to create not just a shopping centre, a shopping environment, but a place to be, a place that has identity within the local area. It's the public realm that people want, that the community wants, rather than another sort of faceless corporate shopping centre. We're also involving our sort of community groups in design, get their feedback early stage, so REBA stage 2, trying to get them involved then when we've got some concepts, and actually try to help them develop that. I mentioned we work with our retailers, looking at how they fit out their retail spaces, making sure that they're efficient as possible. We also incentivise them. We have something called the Positive Growth Awards, where we assess our sort of retailers in terms of what they sort of do actually within our shopping centres, and we announce some awards on that basis. So it really does sort of create some, I think, quite healthy competition. And finally, upskill and inspire, where we provide sustainability training to our people, everyone, whether you're the chief executive through to the guy who works in the post room, you receive your sort of sustainability training. We also have an annual community day, which actually coincidentally is today. So all of my colleagues, and when I went to the office earlier, it was absolutely empty. They're all out doing something, so either clearing rivers, painting community centres, helping out in local schools. So they're all out there sort of doing it. So it's hopefully the rain will hold for them. But we also, I think, employment skills very important for our local community as well. So again, there's a number of initiatives. I'll talk about a couple for relevant to Victoria Gate shortly. So why do we have a positive places strategy? Well, it was I think compliance is very important. there's probably more legislation I can list there, but that just gives a flavour of what we try and mitigate the risk of. Ultimately, our investors don't want to be spending money that we could be liable to non-compliance with those regulations. We want to save money, so this just shows what we have to spend in terms of the carbon reduction energy efficiency scheme over the sort of past few years. So again, trying to reduce that figure. It's about being responsible. You know, a lot of people now, as I said, the stakeholders do look at us for our sustainability credentials, and also I think there's we see the value in it in terms of green, sustainable buildings being worth more, whether it's now or in the future, or at least creating assets that are future-proofed and less likely to become obsolete in the future. So Victoria Gate, we're very proud of this sort of development. I think it was challenging. We achieved some good outcomes. It was at the MIPIM Property Awards. It was voted the world's best shopping centre. I think how they could judge that is quite difficult, but they did. So anyway, it's motivated and inspired some colleagues to sort of continue the good work. But again, yeah, as I say, we're sort of very proud. Well, for those of you who sort of don't know, it sort of occupies the area highlighted there, and conveniently there's no sort of road names, but there's Brigade, Corn Exchange, Headrow going along here. It's the first phase in sort of two-phase development. It's adjacent almost to our sort of Victoria Quarter asset, which is an old arcade. I've got an image in a moment, but I think the key to Victoria Gate was building something that we could bring John Lewis to the city. So they've been a sort of target. We've been working with them for 20 years to create this sort of development, working with Leeds City Council to bring about this sort of amazing sort of development. So it means a lot to be able to sort of finally get there and sort of present. That's Victoria Quarter. So I think it was called the County Arcade, or it was called the County Arcade. Maybe people can help, but yeah. So we wanted to create something that was complementary to that in a modern twist. So that's the front of Victoria Gate. It is it provides sort of retail arcades. There's the South Arcade, the North Arcade going through there. It's got the John Lewis store. It's got retail and restaurants to create this sort of the leisure feel, and also a casino as well, which is that box up there. Took about 2.5 years to build. Opened October last year. There was a site number of buildings to demolish, but again, it was finished on time, just about, as these things always go. But again, it was been warmly welcomed sort of by the city and by others as well. As I say, it's got the arcade feel to it, all very shiny and bright. When I first saw that, I thought it was a CGI image, but it's actually the dazzling effect of the polished glass, etc. So yeah, we're trying to create an experience rather than just shopping. It's as I say, to try and connect with Victoria Quarter, connect with the history of the city as well. We tried to look at responsible, or sort of local sourcing. When I say local, I'm sort of mean trying to source within Europe as much as sort of possible. So the roofing came from Austria. The lights are sort of designed in Italy, and also not far down the road, the brick prefabricated sort of panels were sort of manufactured in sort of Stoke. So the casino is those 2 floors there, with retail on the bottom along Headrow. That's the sort of John Lewis, so the die grid with the highly polished concrete. Again, tried to be, the architects were saying it was inspired by the sort of textile manufacturing history of sort of Leeds and the local area, and that was sort of manufactured in Ireland. And finally, the 800, or about approximately 800 car park space car park with the aluminium twist fins to create that feel to it, with a sort of link to the bus station, or potential future link on the ground floor. So that was the development. Is there any questions, just in case you've got anything in your head you want to ask before we move on?
Just make us laugh when you talk about sustainable being that way, and then you say, oh, we imported stuff from Austria and Italy.
Well, I get the I get that. I think the battle I usually face is trying to ensure that things aren't procured from a lot further away. And when you look at carbon footprint, even if it's just the manufacture through to delivery on site, transport emissions make up about 10% of that chunk of carbon. So yes, closer the better, but when you're sort of looking at procurement options, and we can look at sourcing from the EU or sourcing from sort of beyond, and the carbon impact it has, it's that trade-off, which again, designing for sustainable buildings is about a trade-off, given what you want to achieve cost-wise, design-wise, quality-wise. So yeah, it's it'd be better to have it coming from the UK, if not close to home, but certainly when you're trying to create something that has that sort of design, then you're looking at the options and the supply chain beyond just the UK.
What are the technical obstacles? I mean, Victoria Gate is, correct me if I'm wrong, it's an amalgamation of a raft of different properties, land uses prior to the development. And then implementing the work below the ground. Was there any sort of massive technical obstacles that had to be overcome in order to implement the project?
I think there was the construction of the John Lewis. I think the die grid, it was BREEAM was able to sort of design it and make it as constructible as possible. I still think there were some sort of buildability challenges around that. I think interfacing as well, where you've got the sort of glazed roof abutting the John Lewis sort of shell. That was quite challenging. There was I think some obstacles found in the ground, which is quite often the case. I think that seemed to be the biggest challenge. I think also probably not from a probably trying to ask our tenants to comply with this quite uniform style of uniform shop fronts. Again, you know, they all want to do their own thing, have their own logos, their own typeface, their own colours, but trying to say, well, actually, we're trying to keep this in keeping with, you know, Victoria Quarter, creating this arcade. That did create a number of challenges. I think one of these curved glass panels broke, and so trying to get one of those, a replacement, took weeks. So again, it's creating a fairly unusual design in some respects. It doesn't give you much room for error, and I think just, yeah, some of the buildability sort of challenges were there. I think there's that, from memory, that seems to be about it.
The sort of language you're using sounds like the Living Building Challenge. Have you been involved in that, which is actually a step beyond BREEAM in terms of environmental standard?
We haven't, but I think we look at sort of doing BREEAM, and then we look to complement it with doing other things, and our sort of net positive strategy is a sort of step kind of beyond. But you know, we will look at other ratings and other initiatives to be able to you know, get the ideas and, you know, see where the, you know, the standards are going, basically. But no, I've not looked at it.
We've got the first registered project in the country, but we've been working with Leeds Beckett on the Living Building Challenge. So it's sort of still becoming known in this part of the world, because it's very well known in America, for instance, and it's way beyond BREEAM in terms of environmental sustainability. I just wondered if you'd looked at it at all, because your language is very similar to the Living Building Challenge.
No, not yet. I'll look it up and look at it in a bit more detail. Thank you. I don't want to overrun, so I will press on with the slides in the right direction. So, in terms of actually implementing positive places on a new development, we start with 3 stages. Our sustainability vision is a sort of 3-4 page brief, as it were, for sustainability that, you know, we would give to the design team, give to our colleagues within Hammerson on day 1 to say this is what we want. Stage 2 is actually coming up with something specific for the project, looking at local opportunities, whether it's for you know, renewable energy or local opportunities within the local community. But that's the chance that we will work with you know, the architectural team to say, what can we do? This is what we want to achieve. What can we do on that project? And that's when we will set the sort of the targets, and then the sustainability implementation plan is something that we will take all the way through the project. So, you know, we will ensure every 3 months it's updated, reporting back against our sustainability targets for the project, and then during construction as well. So it's full accountability of, you know, what was targeted day 1 and what we end up with, and then lessons learned into the next scheme. We do set a range of design standards. We set BREEAM as a design standard, but we do look at specific things around performance against Part L, generating on-site renewable energy, looking at rainwater harvesting, looking at reducing embodied carbon in the build, minimizing waste, a range of other things, many of which are captured under BREEAM, but, you know, actually we want to make it sort of explicit to the team what is important sort of to us. So on Victoria Gate, what did we sort of do? And again, you know, we are targeting excellent. We're sort of just finishing off the sort of BREEAM assessment at the moment, but certainly achieving a 25% improvement on sort of building regs was important. I think the it's not a reflection of actual in use energy efficiency, but as a design standard, it was a good metric to target. How do we get there? Well, the actual arcade is naturally ventilated with energy efficient lighting. We are sort of in the process of putting on about to next few months start the installation of a sort of PV array on the roof and also on the car park as well, but also tenant collaboration. So we did ask tenants to sign up to minimum energy efficiency sort of standards, which I think was challenging when tenants just want to install certain lighting, want to install certain air conditioning systems, but we have to work with them to ensure that they hit certain standards. In terms of water, well, I think for the case of Victoria Gate, we didn't look at rainwater harvesting, sort of given the amount of sort of areas available in the car park, but just by specifying more efficient sort of fittings, you can sort of have quite a measurable reduction against sort of standard practice. There's other initiatives such as there was a lot of groundwater which was found, so that was used to suppress the dust during during the substructure works, rather than use potable water. So again, that reduced our kind of on-site water consumption. In terms of waste, 98% of the demolition and construction waste was diverted from landfill. We started to target 100% diversion, but it's just that final bit of waste which still currently has to go to, it's quite difficult to divert, but we're going to be working to look at moving that to 100, but still 98% is sort of very good for the industry. And trying to avoid as much disposal of material off-site, so demolition material used on-site saves money, saves time, saves landfill tax. So it's sort of very important to do that.
Is your contractor familiar with that sort of operation, or is it something they had to learn?
We used Sir Robert McAlpine, so that they were sort of up to speed on sort of doing things like this. I think we're contracted with a knowledgeable and experienced partner, but again, I think sharing some of the lessons learned are important, showing these opportunities of what can be actually sort of done. So we achieved these outcomes with them, which was I think great for them to bring some of this to the table as well. That's just an image of what the structure will be for the PV on top of the car park. So again, just trying to maximise as much PV on the roof as possible without it being visible from the street level. Again, there's the aesthetics, the sort of planning, the sort of local stakeholders, but trying to use the space for PV on top of the car park roof.
Is there any reason why that wasn't included in the original construct?
It was probably a bit late in the procurement process. It could have been sort of tacked on, but for cost reasons, we decided to procure it direct. So we could have incorporated it into the build, but it would have been more expensive with main contractors, prelims, overheads. And given the retrofit ability of PV, so as I mentioned earlier, we're looking at, and we have done, putting it on our existing assets. whether it's carport systems similar to that, or whether it's just on flat roofs. It does lend itself to this retrofit. So we said, well, okay, if we're going to do it as cheaply as possible, and we'll get the centre open and running and working, and then we'll sort of install this project as well. Probably a bit later, to be honest. Would like to have capitalised from some of this summer, but certainly we're sort of detailed plans for installing it. So just some other areas, we cycle racks and facilities for sort of staff and public. In terms of materials, about 80% of the materials were responsibly sourced, whether with FSC, PEFC timber, or ISO 14001 accredited key building elements, or BES 6001, good or very good standard. We also, the contractor achieved, I think, a 44 score under the Considerate Constructor scheme. So again, very high sort of score, and I think they got a national silver award for that achievement. So quite a few areas of sort of success, certainly on the environmental side. On the community side, there was an employment and skills charter which we entered into with John Lewis and Leeds City Council to bring a certain number of jobs during construction and also during sort of operational phase. So as it's got there, 2,000 job opportunities, 10,000 plus people engaged during the process. So a couple of examples for the pictures. There is a local community college, Swallow Hill, had a tour and presentation of Victoria Quarter, promoting retail as a future career, also with a sort of a local old people's charity, again allowing them to have a site visit, have a presentation, and so numerous examples of that. I'm working with, again, a local sort of mental health charity, and the picture on sort of below was a sort of a budget cookery class for people on low incomes, and that's one of the Leeds Council councillors there. So again, just I think a range of things we do in terms of our local communities. We see them as being vital to the success of any of our kind of assets. So getting them in, investing in apprenticeships, training, and jobs, is really important. So we know we're not doing enough, and we know we can do more on the sustainability side, and as an industry we need to be doing kind of more, just basically taking it to the next level if we're going to meet the targets under the Paris Agreement, etc., etc. So we have recently launched a Hammerson net positive sort of strategy. I think what I'll do is I'll break and put up we've got time for a brief
major companies have an important role to play in helping to crack the environmental, socio-economic and sustainability challenges we increasingly face today. We are already one of the sector leaders in sustainability, but we know we can do more. Our net positive commitment formalises this ambition. For a business to be net positive, it must put more back into our environment and society than it takes out, and, importantly, be able to measure and demonstrate how. The benefits for Hammerson for a net positive approach are reduced exposure to energy price volatility and potential carbon pricing, supporting our relationships with local stakeholders, beneficial for our development programs and our connectivity with local communities, ensuring our shopping centres can continue to provide comfortable environments in a changing climate. Potential new business opportunities as we look for ways to source renewable energy. We will be the first property company to set out a comprehensive net positive strategy, and we will join major brands such as IKEA, Kingfisher, BT and Coca-Cola, who have launched similar programs. We aim to be net positive in 4 areas that relate directly to the material impacts we have as a business: carbon, resource use, water and socio-economic impacts. Net positive in carbon emissions means continuing to reduce our carbon emissions from our asset and development activity and offsetting any remaining emissions. We will need to reduce energy demand, install renewable capacity, and encourage our retailers to invest in energy-efficient design and operations, as they are responsible for around 60% of our total carbon emissions. Net positive for resource use means waste avoided, recycled, or reused through our business activities exceeds the materials that are neither recycled, renewable, or sent to landfill. The design of our assets and major developments presents a great opportunity to reduce our resource use by designing out waste and minimizing the use of materials that are neither recycled or renewable. Net positive for water use means water replenished by our business activities exceeds water consumed from the main supply. Water efficiency and projects to harvest rain and grey water will be key activities to deliver on this net positive water use ambition. Net positive for socio-economic impacts means making a positive impact on socio-economic issues local to Hammerson's operations. These include employment and skills, health and well-being, and local economic development. Demonstrating net positive outcomes for local communities is challenging territory in the corporate sector. However, our previous investment in establishing a way to measure the true impact of our shopping centres and retail parks means we are well placed to establish a new standard in this area. Our journey to become net positive starts now, and our aim is to achieve this by 2030. With clear 5-year targets to ensure we remain on track. That's 15 years to demonstrate positive impacts on employment and skills, health, crime, and the local economy in our local communities. 15 years to reduce our carbon emissions, resource use, and water consumption to as close to zero as we can get them. These are big challenges, but ones we are well placed to achieve. Through collaborations with our retailers, partnerships with our suppliers, an investment in innovation, and a focus on challenging the status quo.
So yeah, I thought I'd play that because that probably articulates it far better than I could. So I think, in a nutshell, we're looking to put more back than we take out. We don't have the answers. We have ideas, some answers, some approaches that we sort of want to sort of explore and follow. But it's essentially trying to do a lot more than what we currently do. They're the 4 areas, as it mentioned. We tackle these, but it will be a case of looking at how we really do minimise our operational carbon, our embodied carbon, using more recycled and natural resources, minimising waste, and trying to create that demand for recycled materials as well. So it's about, I think, careful design from a very early sort of stage in the process, as well as specification choices and working with the supply chain as well to make sure that we can ultimately build out of what we sort of need to build to achieve this. I don't think it will be particularly kind of easy from a cultural point of view. We're used to sort of building in a certain way for our retailers, for our investors, for essentially the customers who come into the shopping centres and retail parks. But I think it's a sort of healthy challenge sort of to have. Why are we doing it? Well, essentially, I think reputation, leadership, managing risk. We see there is going to be significant risk in the future around obsolescence, climate change, etc. So it's trying to adapt to that, and I think also, as I mentioned, value in terms of we want to maintain the value of our assets as much as possible going forward. I think just in terms of our sort of plan to do this, we've recently been doing a significant carbon footprinting exercise for not just our sort of landlord areas, but also our landlords and tenants. So we set 3 phases. First phase is to sort of reduce our landlord-controlled impacts and offset by 2020. Phase 2 will be sort of landlord-controlled operationally and also development impacts, and finally include tenants as well. I think we need to look at our assets as a whole, not just look at us as a landlord, what we do, but also the influence and to a certain extent control that we have over what our tenants do. So there's going to be some challenges ahead. I've started looking at, okay, how I was asked the question, what would a net positive shopping centre look like? My first response was build it out of timber, and our head of development sort of blinked at me and stared, and I said, that's probably going to be a very good place to start. So I started having a look at examples out there, started doing more research in terms of glulam, CLT, talking to people, and certainly shopping centre. I think this one's in Canada, so having a sort of glulam and CLT roof, so upper floors, that makes a significant reduction, not just in embodied carbon, but also as a natural resource. So yes, I think there's a cost premium in a complex environment like a shopping centre. In residential, my advice I've been sort of given is that there's sort of cost parity. So there's a lot more residential, high-rise timber framed blocks being built, also offices as well. I was even talking with an architect the other day about their practice now specialises purely in timber frame construction. So I think there's good momentum. So there's another example in terms of the roof structure being glulam, I believe, and then we've got a one nearer to home in Taplow. That's again a timber frame sort of Tesco. So I think there's precedence there for us to say, okay, can we build a retail park out of timber? Can we build a shopping centre? Or can we build a significant majority out of timber? So that's going to be our sort of design challenges going forward. I think also, if we look at, this is an image, proposed image from our sort of major extension to our Brent Cross shopping centre. So all very sort of beautiful environment, but we've put on a big glazed roof. So you put on an airtight roof and you have to start conditioning the internal space because you've got people, you've got heat gain in there. So you have to provide ventilation, you have to provide heating, you have to provide cooling. So again, from a net positive point of view, the design change would be you don't have an airtight roof, you have a roof canopy such as Trinity just down the road, or you have an open environment. So it's possible, but I think that's you're starting to look at design, big design changes such as that, rather than just tweaking material types and efficiencies of lights. I think you have to go for big design changes. We even probably the next stage will be to look at okay, how would you build the most efficient shopping centre, as lean as possible, so use as less material as possible. Something like that is more complex, more costly, uses more material, but it's starting to look at it from okay, how would you build as lean as possible, yet have a space that is aesthetically appealing, as flexible and adaptable as possible, and attracts people in there. I don't have the answers, maybe you guys do, so if you've got any questions or any suggestions, then happy to take them for the next 10 minutes. Thanks.
What would you say the drivers for Hammerson and others like Aberdeen Asset who are doing huge shopping centres and so on, would you say you're driven more by the fact that you can attract more investors, shareholders are happier, you make more money, or would you say the legislation is pushing it?
I think it was the legislation pushing us before. I think it's now a case of our investors are asking, and we get asked questions, whether they're international or based in the UK. They will be asking, so what are you doing about climate change? How resilient are your assets? What about energy security? What about material resource use? And as materials become scarce, they know it's going to be a risk. So it's yes, there's the I think the possibility of making more money, increase values, but I think more importantly, it's about maintaining what you have and not having something which is just going to become more obsolete over time, and ultimately our investors will lose their sort of equity stake. I think legislation did push us. I think 7 years ago, we probably had some legislation that was really driving. Now I think it's actually being a responsible landlord. We're doing this. I think there is some legislation, perhaps the minimum energy efficiency standards is one that we're, does require us to ensure our tenants fit out to a minimum EPC of E rather than anything less. But it's about responding to what our investors want, but also I think feedback from our retailers and their customers is that people now, and I think it's more the younger generations, want to know that the buildings are more sustainable. They're the ones asking the questions about it. So yeah, less about regulation now.
On that note, is some an organisation the size of Hammerson, which is obviously pretty substantial, going to feel any impact from the decision made recently that the United States doesn't suffer from climate change, and therefore do you procure materials, resources, your supply chain, US stateside, that would impact you as a company? And I'm trying to get, in other words, is there a bigger picture to be had for Europe that's related to that decision?
To be honest, it hasn't worried us at all, the political direction in the US about moving away from the Paris Agreement and their view that it's only Paris that's suffering from climate change. So I think, given that we've signed up to the Paris Agreement, or made the commitment, and like in the US, a number of corporations have, and states have, and likewise, I think there's only 2 countries who didn't sign the Paris Agreement. I think it's going to make little difference, if not no difference. It depends if that starts snowballing and China and India decide to pull out. Then we're in trouble. But I think there's, there is stuff happening, people moving forward. I don't think we can not do it, because if we're promoting ourselves as being responsible, then we've got to do it. And I think we've like-minded businesses out there who are doing the same.
Yeah, so you're not going to feel it. It's basically what you said.
No, I can't see. I've not seen. I know it's only been a week or so, but there hasn't been a snowballing effect from that sort of decision. And but who knows? You know, the sort of political and environmental landscapes changing quite a bit at the moment. So
Tomorrow.
we might actually get some tougher policies in. But
The Green Party.
anything else?
It's not going to be the case in 2030. Centres will be obsolete anyway, because we'll be doing it online.
To be honest, the biggest debate in the business is that, you know, why are we building when everyone's going to shop online? And, you know, I think what we're trying to do now, rather than have just shopping, we're creating this experience. So you have restaurants and bars and cinemas and casinos, so people go there to meet and hang out and to do fun stuff, and then shop as well. And creating, you know, maybe, you know, retailers where actually they just want a showroom, a narrated, what, I can't remember the exact phrase, but it's one of, you know, colleague used about having a narrated showroom. So, you know, people, you know, introduced to products, and then the whole point is that they go away and buy it elsewhere. In, you know, 9 times out of 10 they'll buy it from that particular retailer. But it's changing. I still think we need a physical space, but actually, do we need it in its current form? No, I think, you know, the environmental piece aside, I don't think we do. But we can certainly make buildings more efficient, yet more, well, yeah, yet still be pleasurable to be in. But I think, you know, the shopping environment is changing.
You mentioned about reducing embodied carbon. This might be a detail on some information, but does each development have a carbon assessment at the end? And if so, what's the basis of it?
Well, we try and have a carbon assessment done as early as possible, so that we can make some decisions about the footprint. So, again, looking at the substructure, the concrete, the frame, basically the building shell. So that's done early. And so recently, it was found that over 50% of the building's footprint was attributable to steel, carbon footprint, and then concrete. So you immediately say, how can we make the steel leaner, reducing body carbon, and also what are the alternatives? Look at the concrete. So we look at everything from the extraction, processing, manufacture, delivery, construction, as well as operation, and then the demolition. So it is the whole life, and you know, we're following the British standard out there. But certainly we look at everything, and as much as possible, as early as possible.
Do you do that for other emissions?
To be honest, we have done a full life cycle analysis. So we've looked at carbon and then the other greenhouse gases. It was a particularly long study that we had at the end of a project, and carbon was such the biggest emitter that we thought, well, it's something we can change fundamentally early, and by doing that, if you address carbon, it doesn't have other benefits on the other greenhouse gases. So we took the view, let's concentrate on carbon. Water, we haven't had a water footprint done yet. We're looking at, okay, if you took a building all the way through, what's the water footprint, and also where's the water coming from? Because if you're taking water from water scarce areas, that's a big risk. So but that's the next phase. You know, I think we're just trying to get our heads around embodied carbon and what it actually means.
Have you looked at foundation designs that don't include cement? There are quite a lot now.
We haven't. We have had debates over piled versus deep fill, trench, but you know, we're still looking at the more traditional concrete based foundation solutions. We have looked at we are looking at cement replacement more. We're potentially going to be working with a contractor who's done some research into cement-free concrete. But for us, it's quite a new area, so keen to know more.
We do quite lots of cement-free foundations, which I would call more traditional, using gravel trenches and lime instead of cement and things like that.
In commercial applications or more residential? Yeah.
Mostly smaller buildings.
I think, yes, a low-rise, low-load building, such as a retail park, which they're sheds, would be a good solution, good opportunity. So yeah, keen to know more about these ideas because I need to inform my colleagues about what we can do. Anything else?
One of the previous questions about retail. Do you think retail units get smaller generally as there are only shop windows, and also what monitoring do you do in post occupancy to kind of check what your emissions are?
I'll take the second question first, if I may, because it's probably easier to answer. We do look at post occupancy, so we do measure how much energy and water we're using on a frequent basis, compare that with targets, and implement the soft landings approach of just trying to commission and recommission a building, making sure it's operating as effectively as possible. Although we don't have much insight and engagement with tenants and their energy consumption, that's something which we need to work more on, because quite often, in most cases, the tenant will install their own systems. So the landlord system's here and the tenants each have their own system. And although we do put provisions in leases for data sharing, it doesn't go much beyond them giving some data annually. But we need to be smarter at actually monitoring. In terms of retail units getting smaller, I think it depends. I think we're moving the shift away from retail and buying clothes and stuff to more restaurants and leisure and that kind of thing. So we're seeing the traditional retail sort of drop. I think unit sizes are probably getting smaller, so maybe some of our big retailers are taking less space, closing stores. But again, I think they're diversifying as well, because they need to not just sell clothes, they need to have cafes and restaurants. So they're taking space, and even collaboration between different retailers, where they have little concessions in their stores. So I think again, we're still finding our centres aren't getting smaller because there's less tenant demand, but I think there's just that diversification, because it's ultimately their businesses. More, floor space equals more sales. That's still, I think, the ethos.
About phase 2, I noticed there's a second phase.
Yeah, we're, I suppose, still at the concept, looking at what mix of uses to go into that space. So again, that we're looking at, a mixed use scheme of some kind, but we don't know quite what it's going to sort of comprise at this stage.
Can I wrap it up there, Richard, please?
Yeah,
Because we're just about out of time. If everybody would go past the architectural technology degree exhibition on the right hand side, have a look on your way out. Some students have put in a remarkable amount of work to display their abilities and skills to you today. So give it a few minutes of your time, if you'd be kind enough. On your way up to get some fresh tea and coffee up at level 5 in time for the next session, which will be starting in just over 10 minutes. So,